Hi, Bowhead community. We're back and continuing to dive deep into consumer protection conversations around the future of digital health. In this interview, I sit down with Pamela Gill, data strategist and founder of thebigdatalife.com, a platform geared towards educating and empowering women to explore career opportunities in data. How did your journey lead you to where you are today?
Where I am today is really at the intersection of data, technology, and advanced insights. So I work with big data supporting the bank and the digital transformation of the bank. And that's something that fits kind of who I am as a person in my own life and also professionally, where my aptitudes lie. Back in university, my impulses were always data driven. I was always more enthusiastic about the data models and the statistics and the underlying architecture than I was about the social aspects of what I was studying. And that eventually led me to pursuing advanced statistical analysis in my master's.
You mentioned big data, and big data is, a big buzzword. And so I'd love for you to define big data for us.
Oh, where to even begin? I think about big data as that term, the buzzword that you're speaking of. And I always wonder to myself, could there be another label for it? And then I always come back to no, there's no better term than the simplicity of big data. It speaks volumes in its own way. So big data, the way we define it, is through 4 V's typically. And now we're talking about volume, variety, velocity, veracity. Imagine a situation where you're ingesting all of this information, potential information through raw data from your sensory devices, through your entire history of activity, your entire blood work, potentially your genome sequence, that of your family, the history of your family, your environment, your socioeconomic data. Everything is potentially there, accessible for the doctors. So that's a huge volume of data that any one person, any one computer could not possibly manage in a reasonable time frame. So volume is the number one thing. And then variety really speaks to the fact that data takes many forms now. Raw data can be structured, unstructured, semi-structured, and a really great example in the context of healthcare for unstructured data that may not be obvious, but everywhere around us, X-rays, image recognition, graphics. So how can we diagnose, for example, skin cancer if we can't process, thousands of inputs of photo imaging or X-ray imaging for all sorts of use cases? Velocity, data is coming in every which way all the time. And finally, veracity. There's a lot of noise in data, okay? And especially in healthcare, if you're going to use noisy data, potentially biased, flawed, abnormal data, you are going to output results that are not representative, are not potentially accurate, could be misleading, and that's also not a good health outcome. And what's shocking is when you really start to study even just the theoretical applications and definitions of big data, you realize that these things have been discussed for a very long time.
Let's kind of dive into some of the opportunities of big data in healthcare.
Oh my gosh. I mean, like, where to begin? And where we can start now is really, I'd say the end goal would be patient-centric, real-time, predictive, but that doesn't mean we can't start with it today. It will take a lot to really implement a truly patient-centric health delivery model, because we have to change everything that we have focused on previously in healthcare. I mean, the way we collect data, the way we collect patients for trials, the way we design systems and statistical applications and machine learning and artificial intelligence. I mean, a lot of that is a paradigm shift because this is a traditional model of healthcare. A few clear examples are, achieving accuracy. Through data, we are able to diagnose with a higher degree of accuracy. The other potential opportunity is speed. So we are now able to diagnose or prevent much faster. So these are all use cases, and there's just so many of them that we can really improve our health outcomes at the same time that we are optimizing. So we can reduce financial costs, we can reduce operational costs, we can reduce clinical errors.
But what are the challenges?
Because the revolution of healthcare, the paradigm shift around where healthcare is going due to technology and the transformation and innovation behind technology such as big data, means that there are myriad facets through which one can look at when talking about what are the potential challenges. But a few that really come up, if we were going to talk about catering solutions, building solutions through statistical systems that are determined by the fundamental data, then we get into some very scary situations where, is there bias? Is there inherent model biases that are happening? That's one thing that concerns me. So when you talked about transparency, how transparent are we about the solutions that we're creating using this technology? It's sort of like a black box. So where healthcare is really benefiting right now in many ways through big data is through the use of artificial intelligence. But the proven success of artificial intelligence through machine learning algorithms is essentially the scalability of pattern recognition. And those correlations are telling us very informative things like a heart attack's about to happen, or this is skin cancer, or there's a risk of breast cancer. You should, change your behavior in this way or change your lifestyle in this way. But to an extent, if you were to get very sophisticated, there's a black box. And so we don't know how that's been designed, what's going on. And when you get really tailored, accustomed to that, who's designing those algorithms? Are they truly representative of the people that are ultimately going to be potentially benefiting or being hindered by those solutions that are coming out of it? And then, of course, security was such a, it's a good thing that we are so literate on privacy and data security right now. Unfortunately, it's due to so many data violations and breaches. So often when we act on any technology space, on any website, we, implicitly are giving our consent to have our data being cataloged or monitored. But what if you were targeted based on your health data? What if you were targeted based on your potential vulnerabilities?
So you mentioned that, it often takes these like public situations to get people to become more aware and create change. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that, this time, given what's happening in the US right now, that, it will really empower developers, product people to just be more thoughtful, and those who are working on these models to be more thoughtful and intentional about potential racial biases in some of this data collection. So let's talk about the future of healthcare, because we've talked about the fact that the future of healthcare, I mean, we both hope that the future of healthcare is patient-centric. We've talked about personalized medicine, predictive capacity. Do you think we're going to see any of this in our lifetime?
I've always waited 5 or 10 years before I got a gadget or a gizmo or used a cool new thing. But I feel safe to say that this wearables as a consumer product seems to be gaining traction, and everyone is getting their Fitbits. And there's a responsibility not only from the tech side to deliver these really cool technological capacities through wearables, tracking and ingesting data. And there's not only a responsibility on the data scientists to really build these interesting models and create all this interesting research using all of this data and machine learning to come up with, new solutions that are required, but also satisfying unmet needs in the customers, right? In the patients. Some patients who would never be considered for research funding because it was prohibitively expensive are now accessing new medicine and new healthcare because we can, through data and through, the efficiencies and the optimization, we actually can now deliver results. But healthcare providers, actual healthcare providers, also have a responsibility to engage their populations in this way, to adopt sort of maybe a holistic approach to their healthcare, right? Don't just come in when you think you're about to have a heart attack. Maybe we can do something to get preventative. Maybe we can track you, monitor you in real time. So the future as well of wellness is that we are able to support healthy individuals, not that just sick individuals. So imagine that for a second, right? That you can actually use technology and data to inform a healthy individual of their risks before they become unmanageable.
I know that you care a lot about diversity and I guess the intersection of diversity and big data.
One of the things that I'm most passionate about is representation, but not just representation, inclusion. Representation to me is like an invitation to participate. Whereas to me, inclusion is more proactive. In healthcare, when this isn't present, when this isn't the de facto model of doing business, so real lives are hindered. We're really seeing that the model is archaic. If we already know this, developing drugs for the market that can pay the prices, and that market has the same socioeconomic background, same race, same religion, or whatever it might be, it's homogenous. And so we're catering because there's a business interest. And unfortunately, innovations and technologies, they really get pushed forward because there has to be a clear business case. It's just, we want to be altruistic, but we also have to be feasible and responsible economically. Nevertheless, homogenous solutions are marginalizing everybody, including the people that they're supposed to be benefiting. There's so many ways to do it, not just from data, not just from the design of the algorithms and the data scientists, but the data scientists themselves. Is this a representative sample? You can look at a problem a million ways, and if you have all the same people in the room, you're not going to see a million solutions. And so we need representation across all stakeholders, all partners, all scientists, all data collections, all patients, everything. That being said, the big data life, I just wanted to kind of create this cool, vogue niche space where women can understand that we are technical, we are trailblazing, we are smart. So to really infiltrate this next revolution of data and technology. So get excited about it, know what's happening, know what's out there, so you can position yourself. So it's really an awareness, knowledge, building enthusiasm, creating a community.
Well, Pamela, it's been a pleasure. I support everything you stand for, and I'm grateful for your thought leadership. Thank you so much for tuning in and learning with us. Pamela is clearly a wealth of knowledge. Our interview was insightful, thought-provoking, and also touched on some really important points that aren't often part of the discussion around big data. We are doing this interview series because we care about educating our community about issues around consumer protection and the future of digital health. So if you like what you see, please continue to follow along our journey. Thank you.